fine, we're fine. Like, just leave us alone. Just let us go up there. So we finally get up to labor and delivery, and I just start crying. I started feeling so emotional, and I was crying and saying, I just want to meet my baby. I just want to meet her. And, and of course I was totally going into transition, and I didn't realize it. And I'm thinking, how am I going to make it through the rest of this labor? There was not much left of the labor. Had I known, it might have been easier to get through. So then the nurse tells me they have to take me to triage by myself to ask me some private questions, which did not happen at UCLA. I think they might have talked to me alone for a second, but I don't know, maybe it did, and I don't even remember, but I just wasn't very far along yet then, so it wasn't a big deal. But at this time, I was like, I need my support team. Like, you cannot take them from me. And they said, no, we have to talk to you alone for a second. So they asked me if I feel safe at home, if I'm, on drugs. And of course I tell them everyththing's fine. Yeah, it's good that they ask these things, but I was also greatly in need of my husband at that moment. So it was a little hard. Then the nurse tries to monitor the baby. She puts a thing over my stomach, and I was like, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. I can't lay on my back. I'm hot. And I start like ripping my clothes off. And I could tell the nurse was like, this lady is psycho. I think that she just assumed that I was pretty early in the labor and thought that I was like super overreacting, not realizing that I was literally about to have a baby. So, she lets back in Ian and Rochelle, and Ian's massaging me, and he feels me start tensing, like I'm starting to push, and I yell out, I feel like I need to push. And at this moment, a midwife literally just happened to be walking in the room to get something that she needed for another birth, and she takes one look at me and was like, let me check you. So I said, okay. So she checks me and she goes, oh honey, you're 9.5 centimeters. Like, you are about to have this baby. Let's get you into a delivery room. So the nurse says, hey, she said she wanted to have a natural birth. She wanted to be in a birthing tub, but I don't think there's time for that. And the midwife said, well, maybe she could sit in the tub for a little bit. Why don't we have you walk over to a birthing room and we can try. And she was so sweet. And I said, okay. And I start trying to walk to the birthing room and get into the hallway. And I just literally fall into a squat, and I go, I'm pushing, it's happening. I'm pushing right now. And they were like, oh, okay, no, you cannot have the baby in the hallway. So they wheel over a wheelchair. They whisk me into the wheelchair and just kind of like around the corner so fast. It was like I barely knew what happened. And they get me in the room. They get me up on the bed before I can basically blink. And I'm on the bed, and they're like, okay, hold on, let us get set up here. And I'm just like, nope, I'm pushing. And I threw my head back, which I know I wasn't really supposed to do. I closed my eyes and I just pushed as hard as I could. And I was hugging Ian, squeezing him, probably squeezing the life out of him while I pushed. And I did one push, and then they said, okay, we see the bag of waters. I did a second push and my water broke, and literally the midwife is sitting there with like goggles on her face to, protect her from the water that's going to come out. They barely had time to gown up. Like, it was insane. And I pushed, then the water broke, and then I had a third push, and the head was out. And they're like, okay, you got one more push. And then at that point I actually tried to push a little bit less hard because I'd had a 2nd-degree tear with my first baby, and I didn't really want that to happen again. So I eased off a tiny bit on the pushing, but I still pushed, and the whole time I was just saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And because it's a crazy feeling. It's like being stretched more than you can imagine, and then as empty as you can possibly imagine, and here's the baby. And so then they put her up on my chest, and it was just amazing. And I cried, and I kissed her head, and I think Ian cried. I don't know. It was emotional and beautiful. And she just had this wonderful little baby smell. And I got her to my breast, and I put my nipple in her mouth. May had kind of like found it on her own, but I had to put my nipple in Clara's mouth. But then she started sucking, and she was just, I could just tell that she already, and it has remained so, that she's just the sweetest little, like, loving little sweetheart that ever was. And so, it was the second, I had 2 best moments of my life, when they gave me May and when they gave me Clara, and they, put her on me with just the best moment. There's nothing that compares. And then, so I was cuddling her, Then a little while later, they tell me that she's too cold and that they want to put her on the warming table. And I was like, well, could we just do skin to skin? I don't really want my newborn baby taken away from me right now. The warming table was next to me, but still, I wanted to hold her. And they're like, oh, well, if you don't mind taking off your bra. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's really not an issue. Let's do that. Did you not see me ripping my clothes off minutes ago? By the way, I had the baby 26 minutes after I arrived at the hospital. And in fact, only 7 of those minutes were pushing. It was crazy. Anyway, so, and it was funny, the nurse, who probably thought I was crazy at first, like the second that the midwife said that I was 9.5 centimeters, she was like, oh, and then she was super nice to me because she realized, like, no, she's actually about to push a baby out. So anyway, I took off my bra, we had skin to skin, they had a blanket over her and we just cuddled, and it was just the best thing in the entire world. And then I had to pee, and so I lifted up the blanket and she had pooped on my chest, and then as I'm like seeing this, she peed on me. But so then they very briefly put her on the warming table while I went to the bathroom, and then I came back and I got her back and we just cuddled, and then my mom brought May to come meet her sister. And that was like the second best moment of my entire life, watching the two of them meet. And May got up on the bed with us and they're best friends now. And it was just the sweetest thing ever. And so just again, I mean, the Bradley method birth, it went like better than I ever could have hoped for, honestly. The pain in transition was pretty bad, but only really the part when I was in triage. At that point, it felt like, you know, my lower abdomen was like in a vice, and just, there was some pretty extreme pain. Like I felt like I was about to fall off the table, but that was like 5 minutes of time, you know, like, yeah, I mean, maybe 10 minutes that I felt that way, if that. Whereas in the first labor, transition felt actually much more painful, probably, I don't know, a quarter more painful, maybe even twice as painful, and it lasted for like over a half hour. So the second birth was much easier. Yeah, it went wonderfully. I felt, again, just so proud of myself and so strong, and like, oh my God, if I can do this, like, you know, you just feel like you can do anything. It was just amazing. And again, it was just a really beautiful bonding experience with my husband, and then with May, when, you know, and she did get to see me have a couple contractions at home, which weren't too crazy, but I mean, it was really cool. She got to see me in labor with her sister, and she came with me to all my prenatal appointments. She saw all the ultrasounds. I explained to her, and, you know, even though she was only 3, she was into it. We watched birth videos. She loved it. She was like, I'm going to be a midwife when I grow up. And anyway, so it was just such a great experience. And, you know, I can't more highly recommend a Bradley method birth. And, yeah, that was my experience. And, so I just wanted to share it. Thanks.